meeting to order, and can we call the roll, please?
Okay. Consuelo Aguilas,
Aye.
Don Bastian,
Here.
Ruth Broder, Liz Chaplin,
Here.
Lori Chaffee,
Here.
Michael Crandall,
Here.
Dawn Desart,
Here.
William Hennett,
Here.
Mary Ozag,
Here.
Felicia Page,
Here.
Julie Renahan,
Here.
Sheila Rutledge, Ashley Solomon.
Here.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, the first item is approval of minutes. Are there any additions or corrections any member wishes to make at this time? I always wait the extra beat because of the delay. Okay, hearing none, the minutes will stand approved. Is that correct, Mary?
We need a
Our
motion.
typical practice is that our minutes are voted on. I think technically that's not necessary under Robert's rules, but it is the county practice.
we need
Okay,
a-
I apologize. I thought last time you told me not to do that. All right. Then do we need a motion and a second, or will we just vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion second.
I'd like to moved.
Approve the
Thank
minute.
you.
Or second.
Who was that?
It was Dawn Desart moved and then Ashley Solomon seconded.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we call the roll, please?
Okay, Dawn Desart,
Aye.
We can leave it on. No, we did the ours. All we needed is a
Ashley
member.
Solomon,
Aye.
Consuelo Arguelles,
Aye.
Don Bastian,
Aye.
Liz Chaplin,
She said aye.
okay. Lori Chaffee,
Aye.
Michael Crandall,
Aye.
William Hennett,
Aye.
Member of the-
Mary Ozag,
Aye.
Felicia Page,
Aye.
Julie Renahan.
Aye.
That's it.
That passes, or thank you. Next item is action item 5A, recommendation for approval of a first agreement modification and first regulatory land use restriction agreement, RLURA, modifications with DuPage Housing Solutions, Inc. to DuPage PAS, project numbers HM0605 and CD06-24A, Olympus Permanent Supportive Housing, reducing the affordable period down from 40 years to 15 years. We have a motion.
So moved. Second, Solomon.
Discussion?
So I'll just add my 2 cents on this. So as we prepared for our 2021 home monitoring, we identified this project as, again, a project where we had gone beyond what was required in terms of the federal regulations. We've talked to DuPage Pets. They have no intent of changing the use of this property, but it's been recommended to us by HUD, and it's also my recommendation to align things as close, when possible, to align things with the federal requirements and to not necessarily exceed those on every item. So this is just aligning the regulatory period and the agreement period with what's required from the federal government.
Just one more item on that. The biggest reason to align, to reduce it and to align with the federal requirements is that what we discovered a couple of years ago was that if a project were to not meet its affordability period, even if that they had met the HUD affordability period, but not the one that we had put into place, if that project were to default and no longer become affordable, the county would still be on the hook to pay that money back to the federal government because it hadn't fulfilled the obligations that we had set forth. So for that reason, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been working on reducing the affordability period for all of our home projects.
Thank you. Any other comment? Call the roll, please.
Okay, Sheila Rutledge,
Aye.
Liz Chaplin,
Aye.
Consuelo Arguelles,
Aye.
Don Bastian,
Aye.
Lori Chassie,
Aye.
Michael Crandall,
Aye.
Dawn Desart,
Aye.
William Henneth,
Aye.
Mary Ozog,
Aye.
Felicia Page,
Aye.
Julie Renahan,
Aye.
Ashley Solomon.
Aye.
That item passes. Is there any other business for the committee at this time? Seeing none, without objection, we will stand adjourned. Our next meeting, January 5th, 2021. We will move directly to calling to order the executive committee meeting of December 1st.
Okay. Consuelo Argelis,
Here.
Bastian,
Here.
Liz Chaplin,
Here.
Lori Chassie,
Here.
Michael Crandall,
Here.
Dawn Desart,
Here.
William Henneth,
Here.
Mary Ozog,
Here.
Felicia Page,
Here.
Julie Renahan,
Here.
Sheila Rutledge,
Here.
Ashley Solomon.
Here.
Thank you. Is there any public comment that was sent in that I'm unaware of?
No public comment.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes. I will take a motion and second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Oh. I don't have to say that.
Did you get those names, Marjorie?
I'm guessing it's Sheila and Michael.
Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, will we call the roll, please?
Sheila Rutledge,
Aye.
Michael Crandall,
Aye.
Consuelo Argelis,
Aye.
Don Bastian,
Aye.
Liz Chaplin,
Aye.
Lori Chassie,
Aye.
Dawn Desart,
Aye.
William Henneth,
Aye.
Mary Ozog,
Aye.
Felicia Page,
Aye.
Julie Renahan,
Aye.
Ashley Solomon.
Aye.
Those stand approved. First item, 5A, recommendation for approval of a third agreement modification with United Cerebral Palsy, Seguin of Greater Chicago, project number CD 19-08, Employment and Life Skills Training Center, extending the project completion date through February 28, 2021.
So moved, Madam Chair. If I might, I'd recommend that you take a motion to combine and approve items
Okay.
5A and B. Therefore,
Okay.
to eliminate one further roll call.
Perfect. I will take a motion to combine A and B.
So moved.
Second.
Combine and approve.
Pardon?
A motion to combine and approve.
To combine and approve.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, who was Sheila?
I
Motion.
motioned and I think Ashley seconded.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then item B, which we have just combined, is a recommendation for approval of a first agreement modification and first regulatory land use restriction agreement modification with DuPage Housing Solutions, Inc., project number CDO 624A, HMO 6-05, Olympus Permanent Supportive Housing, reducing the affordable period down from 40 years to 15 years. The companion to our earlier piece, I presume. We have a motion, a second. Discussion, questions?
So my only note on the first one is that this is just an almost complete project that had a COVID delay on the manufacturing side, so they're waiting for a part to come in. They just wanted to have a little more time to make sure that rather than go beyond their existing contract period, just give a few more months so that we can make sure to finish the project within the contract. And 5B is exactly the same as what was just approved by HAG.
Okay. Can we call the roll, please?
Okay. Sheila Rutledge,
Aye.
Ashley Solomon,
Aye.
Consuelo Argelis,
Aye.
Don Bastian,
Aye.
Liz Chaplin,
Aye.
Lori Chassie,
Aye.
Michael Crandall,
He said aye. I think you
Okay.
were on mute though.
Dawn Desart,
Aye.
William Henneth,
Aye.
Mary Ozog,
Aye.
Felicia Page,
Aye.
Julie Renahan,
Aye.
Thank you. Those are approved. Next item are informational items. Staff, do you want to go ahead on these?
Sure. So the first one is a modification to our single-family rehab MOU. This was approved by HHS this morning, but per policy comes to you as an informational item. That was well timed.
That's all of our next year.
My apologies, my doorbell rang.
Somebody's ready for a walk. It's all right. As with many programs, 2020 was a strange year for SFR. So SFR is a program that allows individual homeowners to receive up to $15,000 in support for small improvements at their home. We had both the staffing vacancy and then COVID, so we did not do a lot of work in 2020 for SFR. This extends our 2019 agreement and then basically gives us no gap between our 2019 agreement and our 2021 agreement. So we will do more of this in 2021. We have the program back up and running now, but this covers us. We did not have an agreement in 2020, so this just covers the gap so that there's not any. We can kind of finish our 2019 work that we're doing, and then we can clean start our 2021 work.
Also, just a little nuance here. This agreement is actually between the county and the Department of Community Services. So it's the county and its own department. HUD requires us to have an agreement for any kind of program that we administer. So we become sort of a grantee of a sub-grantee of our own department. But HUD requires it so that the work program, all of the parameters are memorialized between the entity that's receiving the funding, which is basically the Community Development Division, and the entity that's administering the program, which is actually within that division, but is identified as the department overall. So it's odd. It's an agreement that's signed between me and Chairman Cronin, but like I said, it's just to memorialize how the work program unfolds. You want to go move on to the
And then the other item is the slides. I think it's easiest to walk through the slides. So Mary is always reminding me that we have an alphabet soup of programs. So I think presenting it is maybe a little more helpful. So I'll talk through these slides very simply. And then if you have any questions, we can talk through those. Big picture, this is a high level update on where we are at relative to CARES Act funding. All the funding that I'm showing you, all of that stems from the CARES Act. So I try to break it into categories to make it easier to kind of see how I'm thinking about it. So the first category is new funds through HUD, right? So these are the type of funds that you're used to seeing on this committee. These are the categories of funding that you're used to seeing. Emergency Solutions Grant, both allocations have already come through you and have been approved and added to our action plan. The CDBG part of this, the Community Development Block Grant, we received 2 allocations from that. The informational item outlined our plan for our first plan to get some of that money out the door, but we still have some funding decisions to make with the rest of that. But we received a total of $10,200,000 in new HUD funding through the CARES Act, and this is how that's broken down. So 2 allocations through Emergency Solutions Grant, and then 2 allocations through the Community Development Block Grant. All of these funds, and you'll see this phrase all the time in HUD, they all have to be respond to, prepare for, or prevent coronavirus. So they have to relate to coronavirus. We can't just use them for anything. But relative of the 2, Community Development Block Grant funds have a lot more flexibility than the first group. Next slide, please. So the second category of funds is not new money, but it's money that we were allowed to reallocate because of waivers that HUD put in place. So this took existing home money that was already in our action plan, already in our budget, and allowed us to change and use it for rent assistance. And so we have a program that currently is running through, the waivers expire at the end of December. So we are taking applications through the 18th of December, and then we'll have to shut that down unless HUD extends the regulations. It's a possibility, but they have not yet stated that. But this is not new money. This is not anything that came in as new money through the CARES Act. It's also money that if we don't spend it on rent assistance, we don't lose it. We can just put it back into our home programs, and there won't be any reduction in funding. And then the third category of money is part of the county's allocation through the U.S. Treasury. So this was just our staff's share. I feel like this is us doing our part in some ways. So the county allocated $7 million to nonprofits. Our team worked with about $3.5 million of that to give 2 categories of contracts. One was for residential behavioral health services, and then the other one is for direct costs, which was basically PPE or IT expenses. So we had a total of 63 contacts with that. We have actually, the informational item I could update slightly, we're up to about 23 contracts that are closed out of those 63. So we basically paid, we had them submit their actual receipts as part of the application, and then we also fronted a little bit of money to help them be able to make some purchases for these smaller nonprofits. So those first RFPs of those payments have all gone out. Now we're working with these agencies to get their second payments in, make sure their backup is okay, and all of that. So that's not, it doesn't fall under this committee. It's not HUD funds. It's a separate pool, but it's just something that our team has been working on. Mary asked that I share a brief update on that. Again, the deadline on that is the most pressing thing. So we're trying to close everything out by the end of December. We're working with them to make sure they have a plan to spend the money so that they don't leave anything on the table, or we don't have to claw anything back or anything like that. We want to work with these agencies to make sure they spend all this money. They have been very, very grateful to both the county board and to Mary, who helped put this through. So the partners have been very thankful for the support. It's been really helpful for them in a challenging year. Next slide, please. So if you add all that up, you get about $14 million. It's a lot of money. We have been, the updates on the last slide, I'll show you a little bit more about where we're at relative to this, but we can go one more slide just to give you a big picture of that. I talked about this a little bit. So back to category 1, the HUD funding. So ESGCV has very little flexibility. We've used a lot of this for hotels for individuals who are PADS clients. We've used some of this for supplies and support costs for the Hope House for Catholic Charities. We're providing some legal services with this money, but there's not a lot of flexibility with ESGCV, so it all falls into the same categories. With CDBG-CV, so we are planning to open an application, and we're looking to fund public services initially, and then we're looking at a $1 million care center set aside. So we're anticipating capital improvements at the care center. That is all room rehab, so improving the room so that there's less transmission risk, there's more isolation space, there's a little bit of a better setup related to COVID transmission. Everything that we will take applications, everything that any recommendations we have in terms of funding will come through this body first and foremost, but then also we'll have a public hearing, public comment period to have any kind of public feedback that we need. And then we do still have dollars that are to be allocated. Those will follow the same process. So right now, we know that the most pressing need we've heard from nonprofits is for public services. So the initial application will solicit applications for public services, and we're looking to award up to $1.5 million. We anticipate a second round of either of applications, or there's clearly some money that needs to be allocated still. So that would, again, we'll have to either solicit applications for that or determine a need for that, and then bring that back to this body for approval. We have 6 years to spend the money, but really it's more like 3 years because we need to spend 80% of it by then. We have talked to a lot of different partners about what they need relative to public services. So we're anticipating some applications in like mortgage assistance, for example, or maybe more eviction prevention type activities. We'll have to see who applies. We'll see who applies, see what they ask for, and then we'll score all the applications and bring funding recommendations to this body. And then on the last slide, I think I have 2 more. So for category 2 and 3, again, this is the existing home money that we've reallocated towards rent assistance, and then the CRF money through the Treasury. The biggest thing with both of these is that right now everything expires at the end of December, so it's provide as many services as we can, close everything out as much as we can in December, and then right now, unless there's a waiver or HUD extends their waiver, that would be the end of these programs, and then we would look at putting more of our efforts towards the CDBG-CV. So that's the last slide. Then shows you the kind of the breakdown of where we're at in terms of what's under contract, what's in the application stage, and what money still needs to be allocated. On the ESGCV side, you can see we still have a lot of money that needs to be allocated. Part of that is we're anticipating that, hotel needs may be extended, or there may be additional emergency shelter type needs. We can also use some of that money for homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing. We're planning on that. That's that $750,000 in the application stage. That is for those two categories, but we have some money that would still have to be allocated into one of those areas. And then for CDBG-CV, so again, we're looking at right now taking applications for $1.5 million in public service funds. We're anticipating $1 million for the care center and room rehab. And then we have about $2.8 million that would still need to be allocated. So that's it. I tried to be brief, but I certainly would welcome any questions. For municipal partners, the CRF money, many municipal partners receive CRF funds as well. This is just a different allocation of that same funding pool. The part I discussed today was about support for nonprofits.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for that well-paced presentation? Yes, Julie, run ahead.
Thank you. And thanks for the presentation. I think this was great. I'm kind of laying out, where we are and where we're going. You mentioned scoring the applications. I'm just wondering, what role does this body have in terms of prioritizing how to spend these funds, and how do we doing allocations? How do we come into play here?
So we'll determine scoring criteria. We've traditionally done that ourselves, determine what gets the most points, what gets the least points. The biggest thing we're going to look at for this pool of money is how does it respond to coronavirus, right? Like, it has to relate to coronavirus very well. But at the end of that, we'll have, depending on how many applications we receive, we'll have scored them all, and we'll determine how many we think we can fund. And then we would bring that to this body as part of a substantial amendment, and you would have to approve our recommendations related to that fund.
I was hoping you were going to say you were going to ask for our ideas, because I have one. I just want to throw in here, the county board has allocated some money to our judicial system to open up a landlord-tenant type court, some of the things that have been put on hold. And I would like to see some of this money used to maybe do like a legal aid sit down over at the court or something, to try to help people so they don't lose their homes, so they have a way to kind of renegotiate with landlord-tenant, that kind of thing. So just throwing that out there.
No problem. I mean, I will tell you, we've had some conversations with Prairie State as a part of this preparation for this release. We've had a lot of conversations with different partners about what they think their needs might be. But from the perspective of HUD, we also have to have an open application period where anyone can apply and tell us what their needs are, and then we have to determine that. But I'll certainly take that down as a recommendation.
Anyone else?
Question. I don't know if you can see me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So from the perspective of somebody facing eviction, how does this look to them? And do these funds get distributed directly to those people, or to the landlord, or how do you help those people?
So two-part question. Go ahead. So the money we currently, that $757,000 in home money that we currently have, that can actually go to the landlords and pay rent, right? Okay. The CDBG-CV more money is more likely to pay for the staffing time for the legal service provider who's assisting them.
Right.
Do you have anything to jump? Please.
Any of our rental assistance programs, the assistance always goes to the landlord to make sure that we're ensuring that it's going for rent. For the coronavirus relief funding that we're currently doing with rental assistance, we can go to the mortgage company, the landlord, or we can also pay utilities with it. Condo association assessment fees, those kinds of things. But we don't have any programs where we provide direct assistance to the client.
Okay, I didn't think so.
It's always payments made on their behalf. Member Anahan, just to jump on your question a little bit more, I think that Dave is absolutely correct. We do have to have some sort of objective, scoring criteria. This will be an unusual round, though, so I think that we'll have a little bit more nuance. I think a little bit more flexibility. But we do, there are two things that we absolutely must kind of score, if you will, is, how is this assistance or this response tying to the coronavirus? And then how are we ensuring that it's going to the benefit of low and moderate income people? Because that's, assisting low and moderate income individuals and neighborhoods is the number one absolute requirement of the CDBG funds. And so, so there will have to be some sort of measure. So if an organization applies for funds and they don't collect income information, they're not located in a low income neighborhood, they have no mechanism to collect income, we wouldn't be able to assist them. So, but I think unlike our typical CDBG program, I think we will have, I hope that we will have a lot more discussion with members of the Community Development Commission. We're certainly having conversations at, sort of at the staff level out in the community with organizations like Prairie State or PADS, even the health department to a certain extent. So we're certainly open to ideas and priorities that you have. We also know that by doing an open application round, the agencies will tell us what those needs are. That, they're the ones with the boots on the ground. Certainly we have staff within our department who do a lot of direct client work, but the agencies obviously see more people than we do. And so our hope is that by having an absolutely open application round where we're not capping the dollar amount, what we're saying is, how much do you think you need to provide a response over a 2-year period? I think we'll get a good gauge then of what agencies are seeing and what they think the scope of the response needs to be. So I think the applications themselves will give us an opportunity to do a needs assessment. So we'll be bringing our ideas to this committee. Maybe we'll have, I'm thinking maybe we'll do a special call. So maybe there's a month where we meet twice, because we can come with sort of, all right, here's what we've received. What are you thinking? How do you think we should lay this out? And then we can come back, in a pretty short time frame and say, all right, here's what we've, based on your recommendations, your ideas, here's how we've decided to lay out this program year for the next 2 years.
Yeah, we can also share all applications that we receive so that you guys have full transparency in terms of how we scored and who we're recommending and who we're not recommending, so that you can see the full range of applications received.
I appreciate that.
Member Chaplin, go ahead.
Thanks so much. So, excuse me, I was just wondering how we came up with, it's just an estimate, or how did we come up with $1 million for the convalescent center figure? Was that just an estimate, or have we talked?
Yeah, it's an estimate, but it's with the work with facilities. We worked with Tim Harbaugh on facilities to come up with what he thought it would need and what he thought, what work he thought it would need to be done that would fall under that coronavirus attachment. So he's got a lot of work that he wants to do there, but room rehab is what fits best with coronavirus funds, because that's really related to infection control. So that's where that number is.
Okay, just want to make sure we had enough money allocated for the care center, because in Health and Human Service today, we heard a report from Janelle that, they're having to move people and they have, 2 people in some room. So I just wanted to make sure that we, that it wasn't just a number that we picked out of the hat, but that you did talk with facilities and that we have a correct amount. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Anyone else? Yes, member Sart.
Desart, thank you. Help me understand the difference, if you would, between the 2 pots of money. I know the CARES Act money that the county received $161 million has to be spent by December 30th. But you were saying there's another pot of money from HUD, I believe you said, that we have 6 years to spend, but we have to allocate it within 3. Could you explain that whole process, please?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll take that one on. So the CARES Act, so there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, about what people mean when they say the CARES Act money. Well, the CARES Act was the giant $2 trillion or something like that allocation across all kinds of funding pots. The coronavirus relief fund was the specific pot of money that went to state and local governments over 500,000 population. So the coronavirus relief fund is the $161 million that the county's been working on allocating. The coronavirus relief fund is a subcategory of the CARES Act. So the Community Development Block Grant coronavirus funds, the Emergency Solutions Grant coronavirus funds are also subcategories of the CARES Act. The CARES Act itself, listed expiration dates for these sort of subcategories of money. The coronavirus relief funds expire at the end of 2020. The funds allocated to HUD do not have that expiration date. Now, the third thing that now those home waivers, what I learned fairly recently was that was done administratively by HUD staff. That didn't require any kind of federal legislation. So those waivers, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds here, but those waivers from the home program can be extended by HUD staff. They just haven't done it. I've been on 2 calls with HUD headquarters staff where they've said that they're going to, but until it comes out in writing, it doesn't happen. So, but that's the coronavirus relief fund and the CDBG, and all those HUD funds, they're all part of the CARES Act. So when you say the CARES Act, I think it's important from a clarification perspective to make sure that you're sort of identifying those individual pots of money. Does that help? Is that helpful?
It's very helpful. It's more clear now. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Yes, I have a question, Kalisha Page.
Go.
What outreach has been done to with local communities and local nonprofits regarding the availability of these funds, particularly the rental assistance programs?
Sure. So we did basically 2 approaches on the rental assistance fund. One was a partnership with WorkNet, and WorkNet did send out, if you're on the Economic Development Committee, they talked about that too, which I know would just be for our county board members, but they did send out some promotional materials. The idea was if you enrolled in a work training program, we would be able to provide rent assistance for the time that you're enrolled in that work improvement program. That one, to be very frank, that one did not take off as much as we would hope, right? So we did not have as much participation in that as we were looking for. The other avenue that we took with that was basically to work through the existing county structure. So people who were looking for rent assistance who applied through the county structure, behind the scenes, we would determine which source of funding was the most appropriate for their needs. So that's where that one, there was not any specific outreach done for that, but it would be just people who came in through upstairs or came in through INR. We identified which source of funding was the most appropriate for their needs, and this was one of the sources of funding that they could.
Or the TBRA funds.
Right.
Or the coronavirus relief funds and other funds that are available. We're working through the homeless continuum of care, which includes the Service Coordination Committee, which is basically all of the major organizations that provide homeless prevention and rapid rehousing services in the county. So the homeless continuum of care has broadcast information out to all those agencies. The overall continuum mailing list probably has 300 individuals who all work within various nonprofits and local governments. The challenge is, for our coronavirus relief funds, rental assistance program, sorry, my glasses are fogging up. The coronavirus relief funds, rental assistance program, we're working through about 10 nonprofit partners. Each of those partners are using their own networks, their own social media to identify individuals who are in need. They're also working directly with folks who come into their food pantries or come in looking for assistance. It's a very difficult balance to strike between making sure we're getting information out to the people who need it and not creating an enormous demand that we know we absolutely cannot fulfill. So if we were to do some sort of mass social media campaign, like, the state of Illinois, when they did their rent assistance and mortgage assistance program, they had a massive social media campaign, massive public relations campaign. They also, between those 2 funds, had $300 million. We're talking about, a small fraction of that amount that we have currently available. And so what we're doing is working through our the partners who are working directly with clients. They're bringing those folks in. They may be looking for clothing vouchers or food vouchers, but these are folks that they already have relationships with. These are folks that they already know are in need, and they can sort of reach out directly to those clients. We worked with our GIS system. We do have a portal, a web portal, so that individuals can be directed to that portal to fill out a kind of a basic screening that then identifies the nonprofit in their community who's working with these rental assistance programs. Again, we're having it's a challenge that we don't want to create demand that we know that we absolutely cannot fulfill. I think the worst thing we could do is get 10,000 applications and be able to help 200 households. We've done outreach mostly through the organizations that we have relationships with and who already work with clients, rather than doing sort of a broadcast message out there. Does that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Great questions. Anyone else? Seeing and hearing none. Is there any other business for the committee at this time?
Just a quick note, we have 5 municipal projects that are going on that we were looking to help. We need to get some requests for payments processed. So we'll be looking for help on the municipal side. If any of you can help us kind of push these things through. We have 2 in Bensonville, 1 in Villa Park, 1 in Addison, and 1 in Glendale Heights, all of which we're trying to get filled in the next month or so. So just a heads up.
Thank you. Any other new business? Then absent objection, this committee will stand adjourned. Our next meeting scheduled for January 5th, 2021. Thank you all.